historian.
Hey everybody, Steve the Amateur Historian here with a sunburned forehead and sunburned arms because my skin is not prepared for the warm season. Still dealing with some back issues. My back decided to wait till I work again to start tightening up, but it's not that bad. Now, of course, you guys know me as a guy who has a pretty vested interest in history, whatnot. What is happening? But also, I like addressing things that are happening in the here and now, things that, are going to eventually be history. So I do like to address from time to time things I stumble onto just while perusing the internet, or things that pop up and I'm like, oh, this seems interesting, I'll take a look at it. And something that popped up on my Google feed on my phone was there's a petition going around, which the last 10 years, the use of petitions have become very, very prominent, which I think is a positive and a negative. It's good that it gives an avenue to share something that maybe drastically needs to be addressed and it can get shared around and get necessary attention, but it also gives people kind of an open season to just create petitions complaining about any random thing. But of course, in that scenario, the good outweighs the pissy negative. And in this case, a petition has been going around. I'm not sure how recent this is. This may be a breaking story or a story that's from about a week ago. But there's a petition going around. I'm going to leave the names out of it, over a second grade teacher in Pennsylvania who apparently didn't appreciate the speed with which one of her students was doing their math. And when the this particular assignment in question was completed and turned in, she wrote remarks on the top. And essentially what she wrote at the top for a second grader doing a math assignment was, I might end up paraphrasing a word or two, but essentially it said, absolutely pathetic. You only answered 13 questions in 3 minutes. Then it said sad. So when you, as a teacher of young minds that are still learning basic addition, that's very much what the assignment appeared to be. It was, what is 4 minus 3? What is 5 plus 2? Young minds, and you react to not the quality. It wasn't like, oh, you got every single answer wrong, which still does not call for that level of critique. This was particularly harsh in any scenario. If I show up 3 hours late for work because I forgot to set my alarm the night before, being told that I'm absolutely pathetic that's harsh even in a scenario like that where I as a grown person just utterly screwed the F up. But this is a child trying. Now, I don't know anything about this child. He's a random kid from Pennsylvania, But does this kid potentially have, a learning disability? I don't know. Does this child have something like ADHD, where the child is easily distracted and therefore going to struggle having to focus during, it seems like this assignment they were given 3 minutes to answer as many questions as possible. That's what it seems when the teacher criticizes and says, this student only answered this many in 3 minutes. If you have something like ADHD or something similar, you're going to struggle to focus, especially when you have it put to you. You have only this amount of time, go. And you're like, okay, and what I need to do, you can get easily. That's how I was in 6th grade. I don't know how I escaped math class with a C, because I was constantly distracted. And that was as a 6th grader. So there is no place for this kind of behavior in the shaping of young minds. This was a little hostile, even for a homework assignment that a high school student would be doing. Obviously, presumably the math would be a little bit different. But it calls into question, this is one of those kind of things that's very easy to just see that assignment. You see the visual and to just get pissed and just be gone. Fuck this person. I'm sorry, I'm really trying to swear less in my videos. Not just for potential future finances and sponsorship sake, but just trying to do it less in general in life. And essentially the petition is calling for this teacher to be fired, and I can see people seeing the image, realizing this is a second grade teacher and probably like a 7-year-old child, roughly. And that's infuriating. I saw that and I was like, oh, bitch. Like, that's how I felt. Obviously not all the details are known. And essentially the school district said, we're going to look into this and we're going to determine the best course of action based on the facts, not based on social media. Meaning, we're not going to be intimidated by some petition into firing a teacher, which is good and fair, even though I don't trust most school districts to really do their job in these scenarios. Unfortunately, I've experienced it in my own education. Teachers who absolutely should have been fired had no business educating young minds and did things that literally were in violation of basic rules and principles of public education. And they never got fired. They always got moved to some administrative job. Oh, you suck as a teacher? Well, we won't fire you. We'll just stick you in an office spot where you're not actually in direct contact with children, instead of looking at the issue of, why would we have to put you into a scenario where we have to separate you from the children? So, hopefully these people do what is right. The issue at hand is, is this kind of a regular type thing? Is this a fairly consistently aggressive second grade teacher? Because we do not need that in any school. And this is the frustrating thing, is there seems to be no acknowledgement that teachers, like any other group of people, any other people in any kind of profession, they come in all types. And it seems people either have this attitude of, teachers, they're all frauds, they're all a bunch of, this kind of like, they're all a bunch of bureaucrats, screw them, they're all just a bunch of whining babies always asking for pay increases. There's that side, and then there's the, if you're an educator, if you're a teacher, you're always amazing. Every teacher is so wonderful. And it's like, neither side of those is remotely accurate. I've had good teachers, I've had great teachers, I've had horrible teachers who had absolutely no business working in their career field. Again, teachers who should have been fired. But then there's teachers like my 9th grade high school teacher, Mr. Alper, who, whenever we would learn a new period in history, he would write a song and play it for us on his guitar as a way to help us remember stuff. And it actually worked. I actually remembered certain things because he'd come up with this cool little melody and I'd remember the song in my head. That's a good teacher. A teacher who doesn't have to just stand there, write shit on the chalkboard and tell you stuff in order for you to learn, but can actually induce a little creativity and a little bit of their own, what talents do I have in general outside of being a teacher, and interjecting those into my teaching ability. That's a good teacher. That's the kind of person that inspires people, and he always inspired people. Everybody who had Mr. Alper loved him. So is this teacher just another bureaucrat? I think no matter what the circumstances, that kind of a reply on a young child's homework assignment is completely unacceptable, and this teacher needs to at least be reprimanded to some degree. I don't care. This teacher does not deserve to just have her wrist slapped and say, okay, this is your one and done, don't do it again. No, this teacher needs to be reprimanded, because this kind of behavior absolutely should not be tolerated in corresponding with a 7-year-old child. 7-year-old child. Maybe the kid's 8 now. I don't know. Still unacceptable. So, obviously I don't know the full story, so I'm not jumping on the wagon and saying this teacher needs to be fired based on this one thing. But something tells me this teacher is a real grade A bitch, is what I'm taking away from it. Anybody who would talk to a child like that, totally unacceptable. So that's the story I stumbled onto today, and it got my attention because You know, it calls into question our education system and who should and shouldn't be teaching people. But it also calls into question how one image, this image of this homework assignment and this pretty little pink writing saying, "You're a pathetic little child," how that can instigate a lot of anger. And the petition, I think, has gotten thousands of signatures, and a lot of it is probably people who had that emotional response and saw that and just got pissed and clicked, yeah, screw her. She should be fired. And I don't know. Just hope that the school does their job, and if this person has a long track record of being disrespectful to young, impressionable minds, she needs to be removed and not given some other administrative position. People need to grow a sack and learn how to fire people when they deserve it, because it seems the longer we go along, the more people just are allowed to slide by, and then we wonder why people get shittier at their jobs. Well, they never get taken to task for screwing up, so what incentive do they have to try harder, especially if they're not invested to begin with? So that was what I stumbled onto today.